This episode of Business Inspires is brought to you by the Village of Marble Cliff. Small village, big thinking. Find everything you need at marblecliff.org.
This is Business Inspires, a monthly podcast of the TriVillage Chamber Partnership. To run a successful business, you need resources, valuable connections, and community recognition. Business Inspires will provide you with the tools, resources, and examples to inspire you to create the business you're envisioning.
Today, I'm talking with Dr. Jake Coffman, owner of Optimize Chiropractic in Upper Arlington. Welcome, Jake, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So, Jake, I remember the day that I met you. You stopped by the office here and to introduce yourself, and you were looking for some information about the area. You had just moved here and were planning to open your business. How long ago was that now?
Honestly, I think that was almost exactly a year ago, because I opened in middle of April, and we had just moved here at the end of December. So it was probably right around this time.
Just about a year ago. Yeah. Wow. Wow. A lot has happened in that year, right?
It's been a whirlwind.
Yeah.
That's
we're going to come back to some of those details. But I want to say, truly, what a pleasure it's been getting to know you and watching you build your business. It really has been great. And, you've been, a meaningful member of the chamber as well, and the things that you're doing with us and for us. So
well, thank you. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a blast. I really wanted to get involved with the community when I opened, and the chamber has allowed me to do that and meet tons of people. Yeah. And I had no idea what a chamber was. I heard, hey, you should get involved. And it's been so much more than what I thought it could be. So it's been great. Well,
that's great. And you've been great for us. I have certainly learned a lot from you. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to come back to all of that about your business, but I want to start by asking you a question that we ask all of our guests. And that is, when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grow up? And how does that tie into what you do today?
Oh, that's a hard one, because as a child, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to be a weatherman. I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to do everything. But what I really wanted to do, which I think this could tie into it, is I wanted to be a weatherman. And I wanted to be a weatherman because I was so scared of storms. So I grew up in Oklahoma, and tornadoes are a thing there, unlike here in Ohio. I mean,
we get them sometimes. Yeah. I was pretty afraid of them when I was a kid too. That was my thing.
But it's a weekend occurrence. It's like fall and spring. You're basically going to be in the shelter every other weekend. And I was just so terrified of them. So I wanted to learn about them and figure out what was going on. So up until probably middle school, my mom would buy me weather books, and I would learn all about the different names of the clouds. And it wasn't until I got into middle school and high school that I realized I wanted to be in the health profession and help people. But going back, how it kind of ties into the business is, as opening up a chiropractic office, a lot of the times you think, okay, I'm just going to be a chiropractor. But that's, 20% of it. If that. I mean, there's the marketing aspect. There's you are your own financial person. I mean, you're doing all of it when you open up. So going back and thinking, okay, I wanted to be everything when I was little. Well, now I kind of am everything, because you do so much with the practice that you don't even realize when you're opening a business that you're going to do. And you make a plan, and then you're like, scrap the plan and make a whole new plan, because there's just so much more and such a learning process to go with it.
That's true, really, for any small business. If you're the owner, we're wearing every hat, right? Doing a little bit of everything.
For sure.
Interesting. That's an interesting way to draw those comparisons. A weatherman, huh?
Yeah, that was forever. I wanted to be and it was just because I was afraid. And as soon as I quit being afraid of storms, I didn't want to be a weatherman anymore. So
interesting. Well, I wonder too, your interest. So there are a variety of different kinds of chiropractic care. I've learned that from you and the other chiropractors in the chamber. But yours is about data, and maybe there was something there too, like sort of gathering information, understanding how it all works and piecing that all together. But tell us about your business, Optimize Chiropractic.
So, I mean, you're absolutely right. I have to understand something before I can do it. And going into chiropractic, a little backstory, I have 2 uncles and a grandpa who are medical doctors. And when I told them I was going to be a chiropractor, they're like, no, you're not going to be a chiropractor, because my grandpa was a DO in the days of when chiropractors were looked down upon a lot. And so he was, brought up that way in his profession. So I started looking at research and making sure that this is something that I could go into. And then I went into chiropractic college, and then a year in, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was going to drop out just because I felt like the research that I had read, we weren't getting taught in school, and it wasn't being applied. And luckily I had a mentor there that I went and talked to. And he said, well, there's a different part of chiropractic, and it's upper cervical structural chiropractic. And I think you'll like it. And he said, you get one class of this, and then it's basically you have to do all of the continuing education to learn more about it. And he said, there's a seminar this weekend in Vegas. So me and 6 friends drove out to Vegas, and I watched someone step up on a structural analysis system, and their weight was off 6 pounds to the left. And the guy that was teaching the seminar said, okay, this is over. His body's compressed this way, and we want to move that over to the right side. I want to put him at about 2 pounds to the right. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is voodoo. Like, there's no way he's going to do that. And then I watched him do it. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
And you're sold. Yeah.
And I was absolutely sold. Like, okay, I can understand this, and I can really get the data behind this. And that was the draw for me, is growing up with family members that are now very supportive of my choice, but that were like, why are you doing this? I want to be able to explain to my patients, like, okay, this is where you are. This is normal. Just like everything in the body, there's normal, and the body has a normal alignment. And our goal is to get you to that normal alignment. And we have a process to get you to that normal alignment. And there's data behind it. And if someone comes in with, 3 degrees head tilt and 2 degree hip tilt, it's going to take time, but we want to get that under 1 degree. And when that structure's in its proper position, that's when the body can start to heal, and we can get that to hold that position, instead of going in and being like, okay, what's going on? I feel better, but I don't really know what's going on. And so that was the draw for me with Optimize Chiropractic and being able to start my own practice. Is I came from a practice that was opposite of what I wanted to do. I was recruited down to Florida and learned very quickly that I wanted a lot more time with patients, and I wanted patients to understand why and what we're doing and the methods behind it. It's because I think it makes sense. And if I want it to be able to make sense to someone, I don't want anyone ever to leave the office and be like, why am I here? Or why am I feeling better or not feeling better? Why is this taking longer than I thought? I just want to be able to answer their questions. I don't know if I answered that question for you.
No, you did a really great job. Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about the weatherman, right? But the science and the data, like being a chiropractor and a weatherman are 2 entirely different careers, right? Yeah. But it seems to me that you are still playing to some of your sort of natural interests, right? Yeah, science, absolutely. Data, and understanding that need to understand things before you can either move on and not be scared of it anymore, or move on and figure out how to, take care of your patients. Yeah. Right. So, I want to talk a little bit about your decision to move here. I mean, you made a really bold move, right? So you're from Oklahoma. From there, you moved to Florida. And then, at a certain point from there, you decided to move here to Ohio, where you didn't know anybody here in Columbus, Ohio, right? Yeah. And you just did it. You started a business. So what would you say are some of the most important steps that you took to get yourself there? Like, how did you do this?
Yeah, I actually was talking to my fiance, Sam, about this just the other day. And I was like, I was like literally insane. Like thinking back on it, I didn't slow down enough to get scared or worried. And now looking back almost a year, it's like, what did I do? You know? And, it really was being in a really bad situation in Florida. Like I said, I got recruited down there to practice, and I was told it was going to be a very data-driven practice. Mm-hmm. And it was the opposite of that. We spent like 4 minutes with patients. It was more of your conventional chiropractic office. And then I had the opportunity to open up, and we decided that we wanted to move up here closer to her family.
Yeah.
And I'd visited Columbus once before we moved to the practice and moved up here. I remember we went to, for whatever reason, we went to Brassica, and we went around the different areas.
We have a new one here in the TriVillage area now.
Yes, you do. And I looked up the schools, and because that was a big part for me, is that I want, hopefully someday have kids. Mm-hmm. And saw the Upper Arlington and Grandview schools are like the top schools and great demographics. And I said, well, this kind of fits exactly the mold of what you want. And we love Columbus, so we just did it, and it was crazy. Honestly.
I mean, it's a whirlwind. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was just like we just said a year ago that I met you.
Yeah.
And then just a couple months later, you had your space and you had it all like fixed up, and you opened your doors.
Yeah.
But leading up to that, it sounds like a whirlwind too, in a way, or, just power through, right?
Yeah. And the biggest part for me was meeting people in the beginning stages, like yourself and Michelle, who was here, and Derek Grosso, who's the president or the CEO of CYP Club, and just continuing to meet people and build those relationships, because that's what business is. And at the end of the day, it's all about relationships.
Yeah. And
luckily, I love talking with people, and I love having coffee dates and just learning about people. Yeah. And so that's been very helpful. If I would have been an introvert at all, I don't know how it would have gone. But luckily, I really enjoyed meeting people and learning about people's circumstances and what they're doing with their businesses or life. And then the other thing is I know, I guess probably the strongest thing that gave me the ability to open up was I knew that it worked. I knew that I had something that Columbus, Upper Arlington, Grandview could benefit from. And just that absolute 100% know that as soon as this gets big, it's going to take care of itself. As soon as I get 5, 10 people, at that time, it's going to take off, because no one else in Columbus is doing a data-driven approach. No one's doing a structural approach. And so that was for me, I think maybe the biggest part was just the blindness, confidence of saying this is going to work because I know what I do works.
Right.
So that was, I think that's the biggest.
Right. Well, and I use you as an example when I'm talking to people sometimes, because I do reflect back and think about you walking into the office that day that we met you, and sort of telling your story, and then from there you spent a lot of time getting to know people. Not just here at the chamber, but the CYP and other organizations that you joined, and then opening day in your office, and there was a crowd of people there, and you'd only been in Columbus a few months at that point, and the number of people that you had met and established relationships with, who really were there in support of you, and I really loved seeing that, and I think it's a perfect example of how to get things started, in my mind.
Thank you.
You did it really well, and I use you as an example, and I think about that, and like I said earlier, I've learned a lot from you just observing how you've moved forward in really such a short amount of time.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been so incredible how welcoming people are here in Upper Arlington and Grandview and Marble Cliff. And that's something that has made this process so much easier, is because it's a very startup, entrepreneurial friendly environment. So people want to learn about it, what you're doing, and people are so friendly. I mean, it's just that Midwest culture of people like to help people. And that's been such a huge component, is meeting so many people that are just nice, good people in this area.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a lot of support.
Yeah. A lot of support from people that, a year ago I had no idea who they were.
Right.
So
right.
that's been
right.
awesome.
It's so true. Well, that's a kind of a good segue into the next question I wanted to ask you, because we've talked a lot about mentors in the past, and I know that you have some that you really value. So talk to me a little bit about the importance of having a mentor or mentors.
It's key. It's absolutely, you have to have a mentor when you're starting a business. My mentor that I have is not a chiropractor. He is a business guy, and he is very successful. He's actually my fiance's father. And he was really good at keeping everything realistic and letting me know, okay, everything is going to cost about 3 times as much and take us about twice as long as you think it is.
Yep.
And, vetting through different processes and the systems and procedures and the practice, and making sure that, this can work, and this is the time, and have the timing down, and having, someone there to call and say, hey, I don't know if I'm going to make rent this month because I just opened, and him being like, hey, it's going to work out, and talking you through that stuff. And then, 4 people show up. And so it's interesting, but it's absolutely key in any, not just in business, but in life, to have someone that you can go back to and say, hey, this has gotten tough. I don't know what to do.
Right.
And luckily he's been that for me. I mean, I can call him anytime, and he's just very sincere, and he's very straightforward. So he isn't a guy that is going to, pat you on the back,
not sugarcoat
and say, hey, everything's awesome, everything's great. It's more of, okay, well, what's your next step? What are you going to do now? What do you think is happening? And just really talking you through it. And sometimes it's stuff you already know. It's just having that person to bounce it back and forth off of.
Right.
And then when it comes to chiropractic, I had a group of docs that I talked to before I opened, and basically was able to grab parts of their practices that I liked and put it into my practice. And that was very helpful, because I took a lot of different ideas and put it into one, as far as how the practice flows and the type of people I take care of and the data aspect of it, and just created what I thought would be my dream practice, and it has been so far. I was told by chiropractors, like, you don't want to set up a practice like you want to right now. You want to set up your practice how you want it in 10 years. And so that was my whole goal of everything, was to not, discount rate super low, to just get as many people as I can in the door. But I'd rather, build relationships with people and have them understand the process, and, be out in the community and build a practice that I'm going to enjoy going to every day, and not kill myself by being so busy and so stressed out, but build something that's more sustainable and long term.
So it kind of requires being patient in that regard, right?
Patience is absolutely.
You got it started really quickly, and now you have to be really patient, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very, it's a slow process, but it's I don't want to say so easy, but coming from that practice in Florida, where I was working 60 to 80 hours a week and was told, hey, these are your numbers you have to hit, and that's all that matters. Yeah. And it was never about the patient. And so that kept me up at night, because I felt like I was doing a disservice, and that's why I left. And now I sleep like a baby, obviously, because I'm the work, but also because there's just I know that when I go into the office, what I'm doing is just 100% in line with me. Yeah, and
it's so authentic,
it's authentic, and it makes it so much easier to just tell someone what you're doing, and the whole process is so much easier and so much more of a flow than in the past.
Right. That's really, I think, valuable insight in terms of when you're planning your business, don't plan it for now, but plan it for 10 years ahead, and to try to think about all the things that could come along. I mean, who knows really what could come along? And,
absolutely.
But to just try to take so many more things into consideration than you might if you were just thinking about, in the minute or in the day right now. And I think also, having mentors outside your particular profession is also really smart. And I know, even when I started thinking about ideas for the chamber here, I sought advice from other industries, people in other industries, some were chamber members, some were not, but not necessarily other chamber executives. Yes, some, but in other similar but different kinds of organizations, because I think we can learn from those types of organizations and businesses as well. So it's really smart of you. Yes.
Thank you.
What would you say is the best advice that someone gave you when you said, I'm going to do this?
Probably the patience. We were talking about that, and just being patient with it and understanding that it is a process, and that when you open a business, no matter how hard you work and how good of a business you run, if you're wanting to get people in the right way and help people the right way, it's going to take time. And building relationships takes time. And building a brand takes time. And just knowing that it's going to pay off, it's going to work. And luckily it is now. But just that don't stress out so much because it wasn't happening right away. And that was, if I wouldn't have gone in with the mindset of like, hey, this is going to work, just be patient, then I would have driven myself crazy, because you have to be realistic. And that doesn't mean you don't push and strive and work extremely hard, but you have to be realistic with what is going to happen. And, it's the saying, hope for the best and plan for the worst. I think that's how it goes. And when it comes to business, you really do. You have to look at all the variables and see what could happen, and then just plan and do everything you can to keep it on track and that it goes the right way.
Right.
So that patience is, I think, that is key. And, and having someone, again, that you can call and say what's going on.
And that confidence and the plan that you've put together, that like, okay, I know it's going to work.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's the thing when you have, obviously I'm not selling a product, but when you have a product per se that works, then that patience comes a lot easier, because then it just takes time. Yeah.
Right. And, because you have that product that you believe in and the confidence in it. So I can be patient because I'm confident.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about your brand and the marketing. You have a blog, right? And you're really great on social media.
Thank you.
And I know another thing that we've talked about is how important it is to you, safety in especially youth athletics, youth sports, football in particular. So you sort of have a passion for making sure that there are safe measures taken for athletics. How are you using all of these things to kind of set yourself apart and market your business?
Well, probably the biggest aspect I would say is, when it comes to the data-driven aspect of the practice and the measuring before and after and showing someone how their body is changing and improving. You can't just show someone, hey, this is a change. They have to understand why that is impactful. And so one of my biggest things is the education piece, and helping people understand how vital and important the neck is. Because, a concussion injury happens at around 94 G's of force. which is a pretty big impact. And a whiplash injury happens at around 4 G's of force. So
say that again. Did you say 90 and then 4?
Yes.
Wow.
So when someone sustains a concussion, it's nearly impossible for them not to injure their neck. Sometimes they don't, but it's really hard for them not to. So oftentimes when someone's going through concussion protocol, the neck gets left out. And because of the neurology in the neck and the biomechanics in the neck is extremely important for that healing process, because you have the cerebral spinal fluid, you have the nerves, you have the blood flow, you have all of that have to communicate and function with the brain. And after someone gets, a whiplash injury, they quit moving their neck as much because it's painful. And that motion is what drives that cerebral spinal fluid and helps the brain heal properly and function properly. So all of a sudden, they could have symptoms that are being exacerbated because they don't have that proper function in the neck and with the neurology, the biomechanics of the neck. So it's teaching about that and getting that information out there, and talking with athletic trainers and athletic directors about the importance of the neck, and not going towards them and being like, hey, I want to get in there and take care of all your kids. You just need to look at it. You just need to make sure that they have, proper range of motion, that they don't have headaches, dizziness, neck pain before they start their season, because those are all indicators that they're more likely to have a concussion. And so that's been one of my biggest things, is that education, and then staying current with the research and the literature, and reading, multiple research articles every week, and making sure that I am up to date, so that when I have those conversations, that I can let them know, okay, this is where we are and where the science is, and making sure that they have the most accurate tools necessary for the kid's safety. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things that needs to be improved, is that preseason evaluation. And it's gotten better. It's gotten so much better, but it always can continue to improve and get better. So when it comes to the brand, back to that, it's, that education piece, I think, is so important, because I think that's empowerment, and you want the world to be empowered, but it starts at a small level, and you want your patients to be empowered, and you want to be transparent and be able to answer all their questions. And I try to, through social media or whatever, create that of, I'm here for questions and I'm open. And I tell all my patients, every single question that you ask, I should be able to answer, or I should be able to get the answer for you. And that's just how I operate. I think when working with a medical professional or a health professional, your health, in my mind, is the most important thing you have. And when it's gone, it's gone. And you should be able to work with someone that is able to answer your questions and help you every step of the way.
Great. What do you think your biggest challenge has been in owning your own business?
Biggest challenge? That's a good question. The biggest challenge has probably been that differentiation, because there's a lot of chiropractors in Upper Arlington.
Trying to separate yourself.
And absolutely. And in Grandview. And I do something very, very different. You have the conventional musculoskeletal, which is the majority, and they're focusing on decreasing range of motion, decreasing pain, decreasing muscle spasms. And then you have us, where we're measuring pre and post. We're looking at the autonomic nervous system and measuring it with, research level data and analysis. And so that has been the biggest, I would say the biggest, not struggle, but challenge is.
So it ties back to the education that you were just talking about.
Yeah, it ties back to the education.
So when you have a challenge like that, or anything else, what do you talk to yourself about? How do you persevere? How do you stay on task and move forward?
You just keep going. I mean, I know that's a simple answer, but it comes back to knowing what you're doing works and not stopping. Because with a business, if you stop, you start going backwards. I think of it like swimming. As soon as you quit swimming, you start sinking.
Right.
And it's the same thing with a business.
Well, and that's obviously very, very important, right? You can't.
Yeah.
Nobody wants
there's
to
no
sink.
other option.
Right. There's no other option. So what, if any, do you feel like are sacrifices that you have to make either personally or professionally when you start and run your own business?
Basically the first time my fiance and I have lived in the same city. So, going out to events until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, waking up at 4 a.m. and getting to the office at 6 since we open at 6, and not seeing her nearly as much as I'd like to,
right,
with this being our first year in our same city.
Right.
I think personally that's been the toughest challenge for me. Luckily, she's amazing and awesome, so she gets it that we're building a business. But that's definitely been the toughest, is not being able to be around as much as I want. And I mean, we still get to hang out and see each other all the time, but it's not as much as I'd like to. So I think that personally, that's the biggest struggle.
Yeah.
And what was the other question?
Well, just sacrifices. So So
that, and then family's in Oklahoma, so you can't get back and see family that much when you're working to grow a business. But again, it's a sacrifice, but it's that thing of someday you're gonna look back and that was nothing. A year
blip in time
when you hopefully live to 90 is nothing.
Right.
So you just have to go through it and do it, and once
sort of
it's
build
done,
that
it's done.
foundation.
Build that foundation. Absolutely.
So time management, do you feel like you do you struggle with time management, or it's just that there's so much to do, and you're a one-man show right now, right? So if you're open, it's you.
Yeah.
How do you manage your time, or do you see it changing? I guess if I would hope so, that you have more time for your personal life. But how do you foresee that happening?
I wish I could say I'm amazing at time management. I can say I've gotten a lot better. I still struggle with putting time at what's most important, because I like research too much. So I will see a research paper and sit down and start reading it and start making notes and start thinking about neurology, and it'll be in 2 hours later.
Right. Rabbit hole.
I'll be like, that was a waste of time, which it wasn't a waste of time, but
maybe you didn't need to do it right then.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the huge parts, is putting stuff on,
like prioritizing.
Prioritizing what you need to get done. And I've gotten a lot better at that, but I think that's something that I absolutely need to improve on. But when it comes to getting, there's always something to do. And that's the thing, is there's always the next thing that you have to do. So you just stay busy because there's always something to do.
Right.
I don't know if I think that might have answered your question.
Yeah, you're just always busy.
Yeah, you just keep going.
Yeah, when you're a one-man show, it's you or nothing, right?
Yeah.
So if you were going to do this all over again, is there anything you'd do differently?
I don't know if I would. I could do a lot of things differently. And I think that those things that I could do could be a lot better, but I don't think I would have learned what I have to this point. From a business aspect, I think I spent some marketing money where I should have just saved that and spent it on other things, more community involvement, because I learned that it's all about relationships. And you can do, advertising all you want, but if you don't have a strong foundation of building those relationships, it doesn't matter. And it wasn't that money was wasted, but now it's realizing that it's all about relationships and education and having people understand. And so I think that's maybe what I would have done. Yeah.
But you learned from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Too. So it's hard to weigh that.
You don't know if you would change it or not.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that would be the only thing is, but besides that, I got lucky in a lot of places, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Is I got lucky with some things when it comes to the flow of the office and the data turning out that, yeah, this can improve really nicely, and being able to show someone that, when it comes to, alignments, balance, their autonomic nervous system. So I got lucky in a lot of places that everything worked.
Well, I think that, when you think about how quickly your business came together from, like January to April or February to April, something like that, it seems like it went boom, 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 boom. But you strike me as someone who probably thinks a lot. So while it moved quickly, I got to believe that you thought about it a lot, like every day in Florida when you were there, and, even when you were still in school, probably kind of thinking about the vision for yourself. So I think that sometimes when you things seem to move quickly, it doesn't reflect all of the time and thought that really went into it. Oh,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. There was, you're right. It's always thinking and writing notes.
Your
and
mind doesn't stop, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we're going to wrap up with my final question, and that is, how do you define success, and how do you know when you've achieved it?
I think success is growth in professional, personal, spiritual life. I am under the belief, and I'm 28, so I don't have everything figured out by any means, but I think that you have to be for myself, my success, I have to be growing in all three to feel successful. And I think as soon as I stop growing in one of those areas, I stop being successful. And obviously wealth and money is important, but you see miserable millionaires and billionaires. And from what my mentor has also shared with me is that it really is all about growth. So as long as you're continuing to grow in some aspect of your professional life, and which I'll always have the ability to do with my practice with publishing research, and then on a personal level, the relationships that I have with people and the people around me, and building, great, sincere, authentic relationships. And then the other thing is spiritual. I think that whether you're a Christian or a Buddhist or you're atheist, whatever, I think that there's a spiritual part of self-development and understanding yourself, and that I feel like all fits under that spirituality, that you have to be continuing to grow and ask questions about yourself as well. And I don't think success is something we achieve. I think it's something that we go through and we're always striving for, because I feel like the people that are like, oh, I'm successful, that's when you start getting sad and you start getting depressed because you stop growing and you don't have that change to look forward to. That's right. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a great model for balance too, recognizing that those are the three things that are most meaningful to you, and hopefully being able to recognize when something's lacking, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And a way to kind of give yourself a wake-up call to get yourself in balance.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing about starting a business is one or two of those goes on the back burner for a little while.
Right.
And being cognizant of, okay, those are lower, and we're going to have to pick those up.
Right.
And eventually
but it's temporary,
but
right?
It's temporary.
I mean, I think
exactly.
that's the thing too, is recognizing that sometimes it almost has to be out of balance just for a minute. But recognizing that it's temporary and catching yourself and saying, okay, it's time to bring those things back into balance. Yeah. Awesome, Jake. Well, congratulations on your business and the success that you've had so far. And before we go, though, let's let our listeners know how to find you.
So you can find me on the web at optimizecolumbus.com. You can call us at 614-769-7831 if you want to just come in and chat. We do complimentary consultations. It's just a conversation, no commitment, just to learn more about our data-driven structural approach. And then we are on Instagram at Optimize_chiropractic. And then we also have a YouTube channel which I believe is just Optimize Chiropractic, where I try to put out a weekly video on research in chiropractic and some of the cool stuff that we're doing in the office as well.
That's awesome, Jake. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you, Stephanie.
Yep.
Thanks for subscribing, downloading, and listening to Business Inspires, a monthly podcast of the TriVillage Chamber Partnership. Our innovative and active chamber is successful because of our smart and engaged members who cultivate our strong business community. With more than 60 years as an integral part of the Grandview, Upper Arlington, and Marble Cliff communities, the TriVillage Chamber Partnership is dedicated to a single purpose: the success of the business community. You can find a link to our website in the podcast notes to learn more about the TriVillage Chamber Partnership. For information about this podcast, to schedule a guest appearance, or to find out more about sponsoring this podcast, our contact information is in the podcast notes. Make sure you rate and review our podcast on iTunes. That helps us spread the word about Business Inspires.